It says starting now. I wonder if I'm live. Am I live? There I go. I'm definitely going to get an intro for this thing, I swear to God. Ivana Taylor here from DIY Marketers, and welcome to today's session of Read It and Reap Google Hangouts, where we speak to small business authors about their latest books and literally pick their brains because we get the chance. So I'm here with Stephanie Sims, author of Funding Your Business. I have to pull up my little copy. I have it up. Right?
Exactly. It's Funding Your Business Without Selling Your Soul.
That's the one. Funding, I have it. And you know what? I have it up on my Kindle, and I'd probably be bebopping back and forth. Let me show you guys the cover. Can I show you guys the cover so you can see it? I'm just going nuts on the Google technology today. There you go. So there is the cover, and we've got all the little chapters in here. Really well done. I want to say hey to our guests who are here with us today. Thank you for coming. Okay, so Christine, I'm going to stop sharing so I can see your pretty face. Christine, so tell us a little bit, for those of us, you and I have just met, so for our audience that hasn't quite met you yet, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know I was going to say something else, but I'm going to leave it to you.
That's okay. No worries. Well, I like to kid, sort of, that I'm a recovering investment banker, which means I used to be a suit. So the funding game is not new to me. I have also worked in venture funded companies. And the thing that really kind of catapulted me into this notion of trying to explain finance in a way that owners can understand was when I tried to help my folks, my parents, sell their business. And I realized these are such smart people and they've worked so hard for almost 30 years, yet they have a hard time understanding the value of what they've got and then communicating that to somebody who could actually pay them for it. So that's my story.
You know, it's really interesting because when I cracked that book, well, I didn't really crack it because it was digital. When I scrolled through the book, one of the things that struck me, I said to you, this was not what I expected from you. I have to tell you, I too am a recovering marketing executive, but my deep dark secret is that whenever I used to go to finance and accounting class when I was in school and in grad school, I would get this sick feeling in the pit of my stomach concerning money. And I feel uncomfortable about money. I know lots of our audience feels uncomfortable about money. We all want some, but there's so many issues around that. So this book was surprising to me because there was not a lot of scary investment stuff in there. It was not what I expected at all. Really bootstrappy. And dare I say, am I allowed to say, Stephanie, that it kind of reminded me of a lot of marketing strategy in there, some of the ideas you had.
Yes, and it's funny that you say that. First off, thank you. I'm really glad that you say it didn't give you that sick feeling, because that's one of the things that I recognize with owners. They do so much, so well in their business, but when it comes to the money part, they all are just like, oh.
It is. You know? It's a sick feeling. I guess I want to say a fear. Right. It's like a fear of the unknown, right? For those of us who are not investment bankers, for those of us who maybe don't balance our checkbook, running a business and the financial components of that business. And, you know, I've done the corporate thing and the budgeting thing, but that's somebody else's money. So there's a distinction between budgeting for a business when you're an employee versus budgeting for a business when it's your pocketbook.
Yep. And I think one of the other elements that we have to consider is that we have this habit of being in kind of the inferior position, right? Like we ask for a loan or we ask for an investment, and it puts that fear, I don't know that it puts it, it kind of brings it to the forefront, because there's really two things at play. First off, I don't understand the process. And second, I have to ask somebody else if they like what I'm doing. Whoa, that's a double whammy.
That's a total double whammy. In fact, when I do market planning for people, one of the things I specifically say to them is, I'm not the person that you want to work with to prepare a marketing plan for a bank.
Why is that?
That's own special, and but hey, so tell me a little bit. So you started saying that the idea for the book kind of came to you as you were helping your parents sell their business. I really get that. That's what made me say it was a marketing thing, because I've done that kind of thing before. The story that you bring to the business really increases the value. So, but I think the book is divided into like how many sections, 3 or something, and I really like how you did that. You say this section is about, go ahead, go through those.
Right. Well, basically it's divided into 5 sections, but what we try to do is help people understand what you need to know before you get started. So first you work on yourself, kind of like a personal development project. First you work on you, then you understand who you're going to be dealing with, which are the people I call the suits, and then towards the end we put it all together and say, okay, so you and the suits are kind of saying the same things, you're just using different language. And so now let's show you how you can put those two together so you get in front of the right people and you know what to say to them when you get in front of them.
Right. So as I said, I was really surprised by how much of it was really marketing stuff. So and actually I love that you included that. That was completely unexpected to me. So in the very beginning of the book, you talk about some really, really practical ways that you can get money. In a lot of ways, it's right. There's one way to get money, which is like sell more stuff.
Right.
So
one of the other things that a lot of people neglect is they get this idea in their heads. Okay, well, you know what? It feels really tight and I can't pay my bills the way I want to. There's not enough cushion and I need some more money. And a lot of times the immediate reaction is to say, well, who will give me this money? What bank can I go to where outside of the company can I find it? And my suggestion is, look, if you've already done the work and you've gotten as much as you can out of your company, that's when you want to go and talk to somebody else. But look at what you control. There's a few simple things, like make sure you actually bill your clients on time. Make sure they actually pay you on time. Make sure, a big one for a lot of us who work in service businesses is make sure that you don't suffer from scope creep. This one I'm sure you've had as well, Ivana. You say to somebody, I'll do this website for you, or I'll create this marketing plan for you, and you guarantee that you'll do some deliverables, right? You'll say, I'll create this, this, and this. You think it's going to take you 10 hours. That's how you price it. And they say yes. And then all of a sudden, all these other little things start sneaking into the project. And the project balloons from 10 hours to 15 hours to 20 hours, and your price stays where it was.
Next thing you know, you might as well be at McDonald's flipping burgers.
Exactly. And that's something that, although it's difficult, I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's something that's totally in your control. And honestly, if you can't do that before you get funding, you're not going to be able to do that after you get funding. And so the money you get is not going to solve your problem.
And you bring up a really important point for all those folks that are like Shark Tank addicts. I'm not an addict, but I've seen it from time to time. And I am astounded by how many people show up, because the story's always the same. They want to see that you've already been successful and sold some stuff and that you have traction. So, and I know Guy Kawasaki, and one of the things he's always saying is, the only way we're going to give you money is if you say, hey, I have $2 million worth of orders and I need a new plant so I can deliver it all, or like whatever. Right. So that's, I guess that's almost like your way. This is something that you control, something you feel comfortable with. You're not really, it's like practicing asking for money.
Right. Well, and what that does, not only does it build your business so that your business is stronger and that you're doing a better job managing the resources you have, which that's what you're talking about. Guy and all investors really want to see, look, if I give you this money, what are you going to do with it? How do I know you're not just going to go, blow it on something? But the second piece of it is it gives you confidence in yourself, because that's the other thing that we talk about in the book. And ultimately, that's why I wrote the book, is because I want business owners to recognize their value, to know their worth. That's one of my hashtags. And to then be able to go and communicate that to somebody else. Because the truth is, you cannot go ask anybody for money if you don't believe that you are a good investment. Period. It's never going to work.
Correct. You got to see yourself as a money generator. So you have a very, very popular topic today, because we've got lots of guests with us today. I want to give a shout out to Christine Bowen, who's checking in. Enjoy that lunch. Bon appetit, chicky-doo. And we have your friend JD here. And I'm going to ask her question. I know that we might be jumping around a little bit, but I want to make sure I get, comments and questions in. So JD wants to know, she says, I'm interested in hearing the difference between project funding and business funding. And I think you sort of touched on that a little bit. So say more.
Okay, and this is the question actually, Ivana, that you had asked, I think, before the show. And
yes,
there's lots, you know me, there's lots of elements to every piece of it. But I think that there's really 3 things you need to think about when you're looking for funding, whether it's for a project or for your business.
What's the difference?
Well, okay, if you're looking for funding for a project, let's take your example where someone says, I've got $2 million in orders and I need to buy a new machine or build a new plant. A lot of people, I think, in their business would look at that as a project. And it would feel easy for them to attack that as a project because they would be focused on the project, right? They would be focused on, okay, well, how big is the plant and how much money does it cost and all those kinds of things. And the second piece, when we talk about funding your business, I think a lot of people get overwhelmed by the notion of, it's my business I'm funding, not this project. And then,
how isn't it?
It feels overwhelming, right? And they get lost because it feels much higher level, and they end up not focusing on the details, which are still the same. You've got to know how much money you need. You've got to know what you're going to spend it on, and then you've got to know what you're going to get once you've spent it, which in investment parlance is return on investment, right? You've got to know what you get back once you've invested. And that's,
I hear what you're saying, and I'm starting to get that feeling, Stephanie.
Okay. We don't want that feeling. That's no good.
I'm starting to get that feeling. So let's say that I'm gonna put myself out there and speak for myself, but I know I am speaking for all you other people out there by saying, I have the skills, I have done it before, but I made a joke in some place, maybe it was one of the hangouts. No, I made a joke at the conference I was at. I met an accountability coach and I said, this is why I'm in business for myself, because I don't want to be accountable to anybody else. But I think the whole financial component is like a real rubber meets the road on the court accountability score. I mean, quite frankly, I really see the income I make, the revenue and profitability that I make, that's like my report card.
Right.
That's how I feel good about myself. If I'm, how do I say this? You know what I'm saying? If the money's coming in,
it's an indicator, right? It's a metric, for lack of a better word, that, lots of people like to throw around. You need social media metrics and all this good stuff. It's the most important metric in your business, right? Because what did you get in business to do? Well, unless you're a nonprofit, you got in business to make money. So, learn what those numbers mean, so that, like you said, you can actually get comfortable knowing, okay, this means I'm doing the right thing. This means I'm making good choices. And conversely, when the numbers aren't going your way, instead of getting overwhelmed and saying, oh my gosh, I'm a failure, it's never going to work, you know where to start looking so that you can make better decisions after.
All right, so this is where my question is going, okay? I want to know, for those of us, let's just assume we have nothing. You're starting from nothing, right? You got a checking account, you invoice, right? You spend, you take in, and this is all that's going on.
Right.
What's a good first step for those of us, let's say, who want to get like the barest of baselines, so you can see what you're doing at any given time?
Okay. Well, I think that everybody, and this is going to be another word that I think you're not going to like, but I'm going to have to say it. Everybody needs to look at their financial statements, which means you actually have to be doing accounting. You can't just look at what's left in the bank and assume that things are going well. You have to understand, here's how much I sold, and here's what it cost me to sell that. Okay.
So are you recommending, so basically, like, let's say, I'm sure a lot of us are using some type of tool. I happen to use QuickBooks Online, and they have a great reporting system. Another one of my favorite tools is called Live Plan. Totally affordable, connects with your QuickBooks, whether it's online or desktop, whatever it is that you're using. And it does all this reporting for you. But I have to tell you, Stephanie, it is so hard. How do I say this? I don't believe my reports. Like, where do you go for help, right? Because all I do is invoice and receive payments. But then there's all these different ways of getting money now, right? You've got PayPal, you've got credit cards, you've got like these different direct deposits, and my money's coming from all over God's creation, and I don't know, I can't get it to do what I want it to do. Where do you go for help?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I think that QuickBooks, like you said, it does a pretty good job of what I would say is accounting level reporting. So it does a really good job of saying, here's your revenues and here's your expenses and all that. That seems to me to be kind of a second level of detail.
So there's something better.
Well, there's something higher, better. Not necessarily, I don't like the word better, because you need both pieces.
Got it.
Right? Because as soon as you've got questions at the high level, well, you got to jump down to the details to figure out what you need to do differently.
Yes, and that's what I'm asking for. What is that, right? Because that other lower level is like really confusing.
Exactly. And so what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to think about your business in a way, I'm assuming you have clients, right? Okay. So you work on like a package basis, or I don't know if you work on an hourly basis, but basically you're probably going to want to track your sales by client.
Right, correct.
Right? Okay. And so what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to set for yourself some targets that say, okay, so each month I need to have 5 clients on board, and I need to sell each of them, say 3 projects. I'm just making numbers up.
Right.
So that then what you can do is you can see how those 5 clients and those 3 projects add up to the revenue number.
Gotcha.
Then what you know is that's what I need. And if my revenue number doesn't match, then I need to dig into my QuickBooks and I need to say, okay, so I was supposed to have 5 clients. Well, let's check. Did I have 5 clients this month? Oh, well, there's my problem. I only had 3. Now I need to focus more on getting new clients, right? Which already tells you which direction to go. Likewise, maybe you get to the first question, I had 5 clients, and then you look, oh, but 2 of them only did 1 job with me this month. Okay, so I need to do a better job getting repeat business. Those, as a marketing person, you know exactly what I'm saying. Those are 2 different approaches. Getting a new client is very different than getting a current client to buy from you. So you need to know where to focus your energy, right? You don't want to be out there beating the bushes for new clients if that's not your problem.
Brilliant. That is
Makes sense.
So I have that feeling now, because I think it's really, really great. So we have questions. Right? We got Griswold is here. Hey, Griswold. So he's got a question, and he says, why don't I put it up there so that we can see it? Why don't we look at it? There it is. So Griswold says, what are the main types of funding for business owners, and what are the differences between the types?
Okay, so this is a great question. It's something we talk about in the book, but we try to talk about it in a funny way. I call all the people who could put money into your business the suits, but there's really 2 types. There's 2 types of suits. There's what I call the faint of heart suits, and those are guys and gals that are really focused on risk. These are people whose motto in life is really CYA, cover your ass. So they're not really interested in how great your business could be in 5 years, or the fact that Apple or some big company is going to buy you out. What they want to know is, how much money do you make each month, and can you pay me back? What they do is they loan you money. So these are all the people, what we call debt. They're the people who loan you money with an expectation of getting it back relatively quickly. So that's the faint of heart. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Okay.
Go
ahead. Okay, perfect.
Love it.
And those guys, when we're taking our big step back and we're thinking about who it is we want to help us in our business, those guys might be right for you if you're looking for control. For example, you don't want, like you said, Ivana, you don't want to be accountable to anybody. You don't want somebody telling you, hey, but maybe you should launch this new product line, or hey, maybe you should try this new vendor. You just want to run your business. And as long as you are doing what you agreed, that is paying them back, they leave you alone. Okay, so that's kind of the faint of hearts. The next group of people is, you could look at them as, the Shark Tanks of the world. There are a lot of other types besides Shark Tank, but those are what we call the high rollers. And they are equity investors, which means that instead of loaning you the money and knowing when they'll get it back, they're actually giving you the money today because they're going to be your partner. I like to say you guys are partners till sale do you part.
I love that. And I've actually worked for an equity company, and I really, really get that. And in fact, I really love that you talked about the trade-offs. I mean, I've actually been in an equity company and played that game. And one of the things, I think that I'd love to hear your point of view on this, but my advice to folks is, if you're bringing on equity partners, kiss any dreams of doing what you want to do goodbye, because I see equity partners as being, how do I say this? They're really focused on that earnings before income and taxes. They're very unemotional about your business, and they're going to do whatever it takes to get that return back. What's been your experience with those guys?
Well, this is really interesting because that piece of the industry is also changing through things like equity crowdfunding. We're going to hopefully increase the number of people who are able to invest in your company that way. But historically, you're right. Historically, people who have been in the mostly venture capital business, which means that they have a mandate from investors to go out and get the highest return they possibly can on their money. Well, clearly those guys they want to hear your story because they want to make sure they believe it, but they're not emotionally attached to your business the way you are. And so when it's time to make a decision, they're going to be pushing for the decision that makes them the most money, clearly.
Exactly. I totally hear you. Okay, so we got the who were the suits, who were the risk-averse people.
So the risk-averse guys and gals are called the faint of hearts.
Faint of heart. There we go.
And then the high rollers are what I call the people who invest in your company as a partner.
Awesome. So those are the two different kinds that are out there. And how do you know? I'm starting to think that there's probably you should choose one. You know what I'm saying? I'm always giving, choose this one if, choose that one if. You got any advice on that?
Well, yes. Part of what we do in the book as well is give you a worksheet where you can work through and decide, okay, I don't want this, because ultimately you have to pick the funding that's right for you. That's the goal of this book. It's not to say, okay, look, you can make $1 million in 5 minutes without even trying. It's to help you really pick the funding that's right. And so you've got to think about what you want. Like we said, if you're going to partner with the high rollers, those guys are going to be up in your grill, wanting to know exactly what's happening, how you're making decisions, not on a daily basis, but at least on a quarterly basis. And if they're not feeling it, maybe on a monthly basis. You're going to spend time not only explaining yourself to them, but also having to listen to their opinions. And at some point, there will be a decision that has to get made, for example, about whether you're going to sell your company. And you just need to be prepared for the fact that you're not going to be able to make that decision on your own.
Brilliant.
So, great advice. When the one other thing I would say, though, we've talked a lot about venture capital, which is that more industrial feeling that we're talking about. There is another category of high roller, which is the angel investor. And those guys and gals can be a little closer. Some of them are former entrepreneurs. And so sometimes you can find a sweet spot there because they know your industry, or maybe they have some really good contacts for you. And that kind of partnership may be a better fit for you than what I would call kind of the industrial or the venture capital fit.
I love that. And you know what? So let's talk a little bit about this, because I'm starting to feel like our conversation got very heady and TV-like, right? Venture capital and all the angel investors and high rollers and Shark Tanks. But I think, and I think you talk about this in the book, you can find these people actually in your neighborhood, right? So if you were going to partner up, now you talked about joint venture partners and affiliates and those kinds of partnerships. Say a little bit more, like if you're just like a Main Street business owner or subject matter expert, or someone like us, how does and I'm gonna leave the part about you control your business. There are things that you can do. We've kind of discussed that, but let's talk about some of these more creative things, right? Okay. You want to get funding. Where do you go? Where do you find these people in the real world?
Right. Well, and this goes back to kind of what we were talking about with bootstrapping. Right. Which is a lot of times a way to find cash can be not a financial partner. It can be an actual partner in your business, right? So one of the things that you mentioned, which is joint ventures, is you sell pizza. I use this example in the book. You sell pizza and you happen to be really good friends with the beer guy or the soda guy or the wine guy, whoever. You guys get together and decide that you are going to make a Friday night special. And so you chip in 2 pizzas and he chips in 3 bottles of wine, and it costs $15.99. And the advantage is you both are going to share the revenues, but you're both advertising to a much larger pool of people. So your chances of increasing the volume, the number of Friday night specials you sell, is significantly higher. That's one way to partner that doesn't have anything to do with a bank or a venture capitalist or an angel.
I love those. Let's talk about some more. Give us some more.
Yeah. Another one another way of approaching partnership is when you're working with your other vendors, for example. Say that, like in my business, I do a lot of different things, but I'm not a design person, like not at all, right? So say I needed some design. And I had a great friend, which I do actually, Christine Bowen, who's here today. Hi, Christine. I had a great friend who happens to be a whiz at design and happens to be like the best person on the planet if you need someone to put your ideas into a format that attracts people and makes it visually stunning. And I could say to Christine, hey, you know what? I've got this really great project I'd like your help on. Is there anything I can do for you? And if she had a need, for example, maybe for some help with whatever she was working on because she needed help picking an accounting system, or she needed help, understanding a contract or learning how to put these targets we're talking about in place, and I had this need for design, we could agree that neither of us would actually put the cash out, but we would both help each other. And then you know what happens? What's amazing in that is it saves me cash, it saves her cash, but a lot of times you get to know the other person's business so much better that then you can be a great referral partner for them later on, and they can be a great referral partner for you. So when Christine is out there talking to people, she's like, oh, I know Stephanie does that. And when I'm out there talking to people, which I do because I love Christine, I'm like, oh, you need design? Go see Christine right away. So not just the partnership saves you money, but it's a way to create a ripple effect that generates more business for you in the future.
And I know, when I started up, I actually kept track. And I know, hard to believe because I just said I wasn't keeping track of anything, but I did keep track. I think that I bartered approximately $20,000 my first year to get stuff done, right? To get the websites up, to get, different things that had to get done to get that done. So, but, the question I have about that is I think it's really hard for some people, not all, to kind of go overboard on bartering. I know I got to the point at some point, I'm like, hey, you can't pay your electric bill on bartering.
Exactly.
Cash has to show up. So what's the next step then?
Well, I think that all of the things that we're talking about are kind of premised on knowing what value you provide, like being really, really clear about what it is you do better than anyone else, so that whether you're bartering with somebody or you're actually making an offer to a paying client, you know that you've got a good shot of getting that business. Because that's one other mistake I see a lot of people making is they start out and they're desperate for cash. And so they're kind of all over the place. Oh, okay, well, yeah, I wanted to do website design, but you need me to do a business card? Okay, no problem. I'll do your business card.
I get it, and sometimes it's really hard. As someone who deals with folks in this stage all the time, of course, number one rule is choose your ideal client. And it's really, really hard to do that. until you've had experiences. And I have friends that have been in business forever and they're like, not doing that again. So I really hear you on that one.
Yeah, but that's also where this whole notion of partnership can really help you. Because then if you've got a set of people, for example, that you feel comfortable saying, hey, you know what? I keep trying to direct people to this thing and nobody seems to want to buy it. What the heck is wrong with it? They'll tell you because they love your business and they believe in you. Whereas, you know, somebody off the street, you send out a survey, unless you got 10,000 clients and, you know, 1% of them respond, that's not useful data to you.
Correct. So I love what we've talked about. So I want to kind of start things into clusters. I have a need to do that. We've talked about creating this for yourself, right? So we've talked about hidden money that's inside your own business that comes from understanding where the money comes from, what clients, how many projects or products that you sell, and so on and so forth. So we talked about finding money inside your business. We talked about different kinds of investors, ultimately, that could invest money in your business. We've talked about bootstrapping, partnerships, and bartering. What have we not talked about? I should click over and see some of these chapters that, we got to talk about this, right? The thing that nobody wants to do, deadwood.
Oh, yes. This one's a tough one too, right?
Totally.
And this is something, again, that if you take the right perspective, it can really be useful to your business. We're talking about spending money. And so really here I got lots of suggestions, but let's just go with 2 for now. The first suggestion is change your perspective. When you are putting money in somebody else's pocket, you are not spending. You need to think that you are investing, right?
Oh, that's so good. Mindset.
Right, because then if you think about it as an investment, you're going to be more rigorous with yourself about what you expect to get. So you're going to think twice before investing in that marketing course or that latest, greatest, whatever it is, because you're going to ask yourself, okay, but what am I getting back? I'm investing this. What am I getting back?
I have a real example. It's happening right now. I'm working on this big Bizapalooza event. And of course I have an amount of money in mind because I've done it a couple times. So I know how much it's going to cost. I know that I have to have revenue coming in and I'm making choices. So I had, copywriters, design costs, there's costs. And I was actually sitting down, I know you'd be so proud of me, making my list, right, of what's going to cost me money, right? I'm not even talking about time. I'm talking about transactions and investments, right?
Right, exactly.
And one of them is, let's say, copywriting. And I've decided, based on my past experience, that was a big weakness that I had. I felt that I really didn't have a good connection, or I didn't connect to convert. So I decided that this time around, I'm going to put more energy, more money, more investment there.
Right.
But it's a lot more than I've done before. I mean, I'm right. So now I'm really looking at okay, how do I use this asset of this brilliant copywriting brain that I have to its fullest potential? How much can I do that I can give her that she can really have something meaty to work with, so that all of her energy for that investment is there, right?
Yep.
So that's my real life example.
Right. Well, and one thing I would suggest is, in that case, I would share with her, your copywriter, I would say, look, the reason that I'm investing in this is because I expect conversions to be 20%, or because I expect us to attract 3,000 people, or you know what I mean? Give them some tangible numbers, because not only does it make you formulate them, but it also sets their expectations, so they have something to shoot for.
I love that. That is such great advice. So thank you for that. So now, did you have another tip around that?
Well, the second tip, and I kind of melded it into the first one. It was really use that mindset switch. Know that you're investing. Just set yourself some goals. So I've got one more example, and I know we're over time, but I just want to say this because I think it speaks to a lot of us. I went to a conference, and we've all been to conferences, and sometimes you go for, not a lot of money, and sometimes you go for a lot of money. I went to a conference, and it was a lot of money to me, and I had to make myself agree inside my own head that I was going to talk to at least 5 new people a day. It turned out to be a much higher number, but my goal for the conference was really a networking goal. So there was education going on, but I really wanted to network, and I stink at networking. I am really walking up to new people and doing the business card swap. That's just not me.
Right.
And so I'm like, you know what? I am spending all this money, and I am going to walk out of here. It was a 3-day conference with at least 15 business cards of people that I really connected with. And that was my goal, because I knew if I didn't do that, my money had not been well invested.
Oh, great point. Great point. So I want to throw up a couple comments. Here's Christine having a mindset moment. I love that. Absolutely. Rock on, my woman. I love that. I love that. Oh, and Christine had another hint. You can save time and energy with bartering. Yes. We were just talking about that.
Yeah. Good. And this is something we haven't talked about, but your time has value too. And so, yes, you may be able to do it for free, but if it takes you 10 hours that you're not out there getting clients for, that needs to factor into the equation.
Absolutely. And you know what? I'd love to hear your thing. Very early on, I wanted to know what my time was worth, and the way I did it back then, and I think the way I still do it now, more or less, is I literally look at my business credit card and where all the expenses are, right? And I divide that by, how many hours a month or so I work or something. And that kind of gives me the cost. I come from manufacturing. Right. So I need to know what everything is worth, and I mean, I'm all about value pricing, but at some point, how do you recommend that people know what their time is worth? How do you get to that number?
Well, it's an interesting question, and I love your approach. I actually used to work in semiconductor manufacturing as well, so we got lots in common here. But there's 2 ways to look at it. There's making sure that you place the right value on your time, right? So that you're not off doing things that aren't best and highest use. But then there's the question of pricing, right?
So there's cost and there's price.
Exactly. And so let's stick with the cost, we're talking about the first one, which is what's your internal cost? What does it cost you for an hour of your time?
Correct.
And when you're first starting out, this number can be scary. But what I suggest people do is they take the amount of money they want to earn. Right? So take the amount of money you want to earn per year and then divide it by the number of hours that you're willing to work. Now, if you're working full time, make sure you count vacation and don't count weekends. I mean, don't be crazy. But, somewhere between, say, 1,500 and 2,000 hours a year, to make it easy. Mm-hmm. And that is the value of your time.
I love that. People, write this down. Do this thing. It's awesome. It's awesome. Well, because I think the way I did mine is I needed to know exactly how much money I was spending every hour of a day, whether I was doing something or not doing something. And this that you've added, so that way, because I have a tendency to give, to just do too much for free.
Right. We all do. Everyone does. We want to help.
We want to help. And I needed to know that, Chiclet, every time, you're doing something for someone, you're spending, because we're using paper, we're using printer ink, we're using internet, things are happening, and those are fixed costs. But I love what you're worth. Take your money, write that down. Christine says you lie.
She says what?
You lie.
Did I lie?
She said you lie. That you're an awesome liar.
I love you so much, Christine. But she knew what I meant too. I think getting to know people is fine, but I just don't do the business here's my business card. Call me if you need something.
Oh,
That's just not my thing.
I don't do that very well. I'm actually, nobody believes me when I tell them I'm dreadfully shy.
Okay.
Right? You walk into a room, there's people clustering. Yes. I'm and okay like this, but to walk up to a group and say something, I don't know.
I think some of it though is just because it feels kind of fake, right? Because it feels like it feels like, okay, we all know this is what we're here to do. So I have to go talk to these people, but I don't even know if I have anything in common with them. And then if I get stuck talking to them, then I'm going to, you know, they're going to be bored and I'm not going to waste my time. And so if somebody could figure out a way to make actual networking events that didn't feel like networking events, that is a moneymaker. Call me. I'll help you find funding.
I have that.
Okay, we have to talk.
We're going to have to talk. But okay, so we should let these people go back to work. Stephanie, tell them where they can get a copy of this book. Is it Kindle only? Is it hard copy? Where do we go? What do we do?
Okay, so right now, if you're interested in learning, right now it's Kindle only. Well, it's EPUB only. So you can find the book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or Kobo, whichever platform you prefer. But if you're just interested in learning more about the book and getting a little bit of information, you can go to fundyourbizbook.com, and you and I can get connected. You can download a free preview, and you can learn a little more about all the things we've been talking about today.
Awesome. Stephanie, thank you so much for being here. Bye, everybody. Thank you for asking awesome questions. If you have more questions, throw them in the comments below. Stephanie will get right back to you. Stephanie, thank you so much. And everyone, just so you know, the Your Business Without Selling Your Soul, it's green. It's got George Washington's picture on it, and it belongs in your pocket.
Thank you.